Tell me, have you ever considered working for your country? When I came to Oxford in 2005, I was secretly, and being an Australian, irrationally hoping that someone would ask me that exact question. For those are the words that apparently college tutors use when they gently approach promising undergraduates for, kind of secret jobs in government roles that are highly consequential that they can't talk about. In fact, at some point, there was so much demand for clandestine talent at these universities that the most famous recruits we have, some of them at least, ended up working for 2 governments. Now, I'm not a college tutor, nor am I asking you or offering you a job in intelligence. But I am here to say that I believe today more than ever, there is an urgent need for you to go undercover in consequential roles, which is why I'm here to pitch you a new idea, the Undercover Entrepreneur. Now, before I start, let me get a sense of whether you're suitable for this job. Okay, so raise your hand if you are currently an entrepreneur or have ever been an entrepreneur. Put it high so we can all see. Great, fantastic, excellent. Okay, please raise your hand if you're not an entrepreneur now, but you would like to be, or you think you might like to be at some point in the future. Excellent. Okay, finally, those of you who have no interest in being an entrepreneur whatsoever are very happy working for someone else. You know what? I think you are all completely suitable for this role. Let me give you the pitch. If you accept what I'm going to say here today, you can have a dynamic, highly interesting career. You can be mobile, never bored, and more importantly, you can lead a consequential life where you can help existing organizations transform themselves and the whole of society for the better. Okay? That's my pitch. It's a little bit abstract, so let me talk you through a few people who are already doing this. This is Kiran Jan. She's a lawyer. She worked for 7 years as the deputy city attorney in Oakland, California. But as an undercover entrepreneur, she experimented with civic design and participatory governance. She pioneered the Kiva.org, what's called Kiva Zip. She brought 0% loans to community members in Oakland, a business model that was developed in East Africa originally. This is Christian Umbach. He's been executive assistant to the board of a major European airline. But now, as an undercover entrepreneur, he's co-created an innovation lab in Berlin, working with a whole variety of startups and creating an API for the airline's data to reimagine and reinvent the future of mobility. This is Aaron Maniam. He's an Oxford alum with a double first in PPE and a degree from the Blavatnik School. He's a civil servant in Singapore. But he created a super interesting, really innovative training program called the CAST, the Applied Simulation Training, so that civil servants in Singapore can experience and respond to complex challenges in advance. And finally, my fellow Australian, Ryan Heath, a journalist and speechwriter. He's the guy, if you've been to Brussels recently, that helped turn Neelie Kroes and the digital agenda into one of the most talked about issues in Europe over the last few years. And he's currently disrupting the Brussels media market by writing the must-read column every morning in European policy. These people have 4 things in common. They're purposeful, thank you, Cheryl. They're passionate, they're persistent, and they're employed. They work for other people. Now, I can sense that some of you are thinking, hold on a second, Nick, I think I've heard of this before. You're just describing intrapreneurs. These are entrepreneurs. Don't try and create some new term, undercover entrepreneur. Okay, hold on a second. It's a fair point, but there's 2 big differences. The first is that an undercover entrepreneur is not someone who simply looks to create a new product or service within an existing organization. Instead, as Jenny said earlier, they are people that try and imagine new possibilities. They try and create new patterns. They mobilize people. They are entrepreneurs on a mission. The second difference is that undercover entrepreneur is so much a cooler term than intrapreneur. Now, this TEDx is all about going from ideas to impact. So why do undercover entrepreneurs have the potential to create impact? Let me just give you two quick examples. The first one relates to the economic situation in which we find ourselves today. We have a challenge of sustainable growth and job creation. Now, I'm all in favor of startups. I've worked on fostering startups in Europe for the last 2 years. But let me tell you one surprising thing we've found recently. It's not the creation of innovative interesting businesses that matters right now. It's the scaling of existing innovative businesses that's going to lead to the results we need in our economy to deliver the jobs and sustainable growth that are so important. Here's a quick figure from Sherry Kutu's Scale-Up report from the end of last year. If here in the UK, the percentage of businesses that are fast growing shifts by 1 percentage point, okay? So if the number of fast-growing businesses goes from 4.6% to 5.6%, that has the possibility to create 280,000 jobs and £39 billion in additional turnover in the UK alone in the next 3 years. So the prize is absolutely huge. If you have the guts to join a promising small and medium-sized enterprise, or join an already interesting startup, or join a large multinational and be innovative and undercover entrepreneur there, you can add a huge amount to solving that challenge. Second huge impact that you can have is in government. Government needs undercover entrepreneurs way more than it needs secret agents, I'm pretty sure, okay? Government here in the UK and in the US is responsible for 40% of GDP in terms of spending, okay? In Finland, France, and Sweden, it's over 50%. Meanwhile, governments around the world are facing complex geopolitical challenges, social challenges. They have to deliver more and higher quality services to more demanding, connected citizens. And they need to do so with less money and record low levels of trust. The Edelman Trust Barometer this year pointed out that governments are the least trusted of the 4 major institutions: businesses, civil society, governments, and media. And that trust is going down. So when you think about where you can put your energy, time, and resources, you should also consider looking to be innovative in government, in civic and municipal government like Kiran, in national government, or like Ryan at the European Commission or even the United Nations. These are incredibly important and impactful opportunities for you to use your skills. Unfortunately, undercover entrepreneurs today are in hugely short supply. This is data from the Global Entrepreneurship Monitor, where they looked at entrepreneurial employee activity. You can see in all regions around the world, it drastically lags. What does it lag? It lags the number of entrepreneurs. And haven't we been all talking in business school recently about how we need more entrepreneurs? Well, how much more do we need undercover entrepreneurs if that's the state of affairs? Okay, so just keep this in your mind. You have the opportunity to be purposeful, passionate, and persistent, and drive in an area where you're in huge demand. Now, let's assume that you accept my pitch today and you decide, thanks, Nick, I'm convinced. I'm going to go find a target. I'm going to infiltrate an organization. I'm going to move in there and get that job. Now what? What do I need? What do I do? Okay, 4 key lessons that I've learnt from my own experience, but also from talking to many others about this. The first one, it's not that obvious, but it's around the importance of not losing sight of the mission. It's often very easy to blend in too well into a new organization, to adapt to its culture and norms very quickly, and to forget why you're there. You are there in order to dance with fear, as Seth Godin puts it. You're there to create uncertainty, to shake it up. If you're not doing that, you might as well leave and become a regular entrepreneur, okay? So just remember the mission. Now, one of the speakers earlier made an excellent point, which is the best case is if you can actually create an entirely safe space for yourself to be entrepreneurial and highly innovative within that company. So this is exactly what Christian Umbach and his colleague Sebastian Herzog have done in moving their innovation lab to Berlin, away from the headquarters in Frankfurt. This is a great way of doing it. The second approach is you've got to be inspired by frugality. Don't make the mistake when you join a government department or a civil society organization or a large multinational that resources are plentiful. They're not. Right now, you need to make the most of scarce resources and do it in the most innovative ways possible. And the upside of this is it will make the innovations you create far more transferable to other sectors and other organizations. So Kiran, when she created the Kiva Zip partnership, really found inspiration in the fact that the city government could not put resources into the crowdfunding program. In fact, they had to look for other reasons and other ways in which partners could come together and support that work. And as a result, it's hugely successful now in the United States. The third lesson is about trust and social capital. Undercover entrepreneurs don't work alone. You need to find co-conspirators. And there are, besides the immediate surrounding and the colleagues you can recruit to your network within the organization, there are two important sets of people to work with. The first one is you do need a supportive boss. You need to find a sponsor inside the organization that can live with the fact that you are going to piss off a lot of people, okay? That's incredibly important. But the second and really important thing is you need to be open to the outside. You need to be able to create the hooks for your organization to work with other partners. This is the kind of thing that Ryan did with his colleagues on Neelie Kroes's cabinet when they launched at Davos last year the Startup Europe Partnership. This is a purpose-built vehicle for bringing together large multinationals and young startups and building trusted relationships so that they can work together. And the fourth lesson is, like any entrepreneur, the undercover entrepreneur needs to be hugely persistent and hugely adaptive, okay? It doesn't matter if you're not the superstar. It doesn't matter if you're not the extrovert or the genius. None of that matters. You can be from any background, any gender, any skill set. You can't create the opportunities unless you keep going. And this is Nancy Bird, a famous Australian aviatrix and pioneer. And I just put that up there in terms of really focusing on the fact that anything is possible, anything is pioneering, but you have to keep that persistent and that commitment. So I want to leave you then with two final thoughts. The first is, as Guy Kawasaki says, being an entrepreneur, it's a state of mind, not a job title. So my dream for you is that you have many different job titles over your career, but throughout all of them, you have the opportunity to be part of a global community of undercover entrepreneurs, working together, supporting one another to transform business, government, civil society, and yes, our universities as well, in order to tackle some of those complex challenges that we all worry about every day. I want you to have the opportunity to build on the power and leverage of great institutions like Cambridge, like Oxford, to make a huge difference in the world. And you can do that if you take your entrepreneurial spirit and you apply it as an undercover entrepreneur in these organizations. And you know what? The great thing about this is that if it doesn't work out, if you don't have a boss that supports you, if you're fired for being too edgy, creating too much uncertainty, you can always bug out and create the next big disruptive startup and make $1 billion, and you know, it's fine, everyone's happy. So let me ask you that question again. Have you ever considered working for your country?